For nearly 3 decades, Melinda Gates remained alongside one of the wealthiest individuals on Earth. She appeared in photographs, managed their foundation, and brought up 3 children. Then in 2021, she departed from everything. The separation stunned the public. The financial settlement reached $76 billion. Speculation centered on Bill's indiscretions, yet Melinda remained silent. Then in 2025, at age 61, she spoke openly. She described an encounter in 2013 that disturbed her deeply. She discussed deceptions that kept mounting, and she acknowledged the genuine reason for her departure. Her words transformed the public's entire understanding. Melinda Ann French entered this world on August 15, 1964 in Dallas, where her early years unfolded in a household that balanced structure with intellectual curiosity. She arrived as the second of 4 siblings, born to a father who worked as an aerospace engineer contributing to lunar missions during the Apollo era. Her mother remained home, establishing the family's daily patterns with steady values and nurturing warmth. Their community offered comfort without extravagance, and her father understood that supporting 4 children required careful financial planning. So, in the late 1970s, he launched a rental property enterprise to ensure each child could afford higher education. This venture became a collective family undertaking, and Melinda discovered herself holding a paintbrush by age 10. Her weekends involved painting walls, cleaning floors, and mastering basic repairs. She began observing how shared responsibility lightened individual burdens. That understanding took root deeply. As the enterprise expanded, her tasks grew more complex. By 12, she handled elementary bookkeeping, managing financial records most children her age never encountered. Contributing to something larger than herself became familiar territory. Each apartment she cleaned represented saved tuition funds. Each ledger she maintained demonstrated how thoughtful preparation created future opportunities. Those formative years built her sense of personal responsibility without direct instruction. She grasped independence well before she could articulate the concept. That groundwork continued strengthening as she entered adolescence. Around this period, something unexpected appeared in their home. Her father purchased an Apple II computer released in 1977, opening a door she never knew existed. At 14, she began utilizing it for tracking rental records, and the blinking cursor captivated her attention. She taught herself basic programming, typing commands repeatedly until simple programs responded to her instructions. Very few young women explored coding then, yet she found it reassuring. The machine showed no concern for age or gender. It valued only logic. She cherished that quality. Hours disappeared while she composed small programs, solving minor problems within the rental business. She started sensing that technology could help organize and understand the world. That sensation stayed with her permanently. Her intellectual curiosity intensified when she enrolled at Ursuline Academy in 1978. The institution challenged every student rigorously, and Melinda welcomed that pressure. She excelled across all subjects, particularly mathematics and science, and instructors noticed her dedication. Ursuline ranked among Texas's first schools introducing computers into classrooms, and that choice altered her trajectory. She discovered computer science courses both thrilling and daunting. Every assignment pushed her deeper into the field she already loved. When she graduated in 1982 as valedictorian, she carried more than exceptional grades. She possessed steady confidence that technology could reshape the future. Her experience there crystallized something essential. She wanted participation in that future. Soon after, she secured her first paid position tutoring younger students in mathematics and programming. It was the early 1980s, and remarkably few young women taught coding to anyone. Yet, she stood before struggling students explaining lines of basic code for $5 hourly. It provided good income for a teenager, but more significantly, she learned how much satisfaction came from helping others grasp difficult concepts. She noticed how teaching sharpened her own thinking, and the confidence gained from those sessions remained with her permanently. When she arrived at Duke University in 1982, all those early lessons accompanied her. She entered classrooms where she frequently stood among the only women studying computer science, and the atmosphere felt distinctly different. Male students voiced answers without hesitation, and she sensed the shift immediately. Her high school experience had been encouraging and balanced, but this environment sometimes felt overwhelming. In one of her initial CS classes, the professor employed a programming language she had never encountered before. That moment sparked self-doubt. But the doubt proved temporary. She pushed forward. She studied with greater intensity. She learned more rapidly. By 1986, she completed her Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Economics. By 1987, she held her MBA at merely 23. She worked through those years with fierce determination, later serving as a Duke Board trustee from 1996 through 2003. Those 5 years at Duke taught her competitive skills, adaptive thinking, and trust in her own intellect. Her internship experiences also strengthened her path. She spent 2 summers at IBM learning how large teams functioned and how software development occurred piece by piece. The work demanded much, but she absorbed every available lesson. These internships provided genuine technical experience during an era when women rarely occupied such positions. She mastered multimedia tools, coding strategies, and teamwork fundamentals. Living frugally in dormitories during those summers, she found herself envisioning where this technology world could transport her. She grew sharper, more confident, and increasingly curious about the future she desired. Then arrived a critical decision point. Following her second IBM internship, she received an employment offer. It appeared the secure choice. The corporation was massive. The career trajectory looked stable. But during her final interview, her hiring manager did something unusual. The manager advised her to consider Microsoft, which remained a smaller company with ambitious dreams. That guidance surprised her and even frightened her slightly. Beginning anew in Seattle seemed complicated, yet she listened carefully. She desired growth over comfort. So in 1987, she declined IBM and joined Microsoft instead. Looking backward, she acknowledged it was the choice that transformed everything. She arrived at Microsoft in August 1987 as a 23-year-old product manager carrying a fresh MBA and quiet determination to contribute meaningfully. Her initial work centered on multimedia products, which remained novel territory in technology. One of her first major assignments was Cinemonia, a movie guide constructed on CD-ROM that launched in 1992. It blended films, trivia, cast information, and interactive features in unprecedented ways. The project sold more than 200,000 copies during its first year and demonstrated that digital entertainment could be both practical and enjoyable. That success helped her establish her position inside the company. Not long afterwards, she led the team that created Encarta in 1993. Encarta became one of the most significant digital encyclopedias of its era. It combined text, photographs, audio clips, and video into a single product. By 1995, it had sold over 1 million copies. Families utilized it for homework. Schools adopted it. Computers worldwide carried it, and she guided every stage from design to content to user interaction. Encarta showed her how powerful, well-executed technology could become. Alongside these assignments, she managed products like Publisher, Bob, Money, Works, and multimedia components of Word. Each project brought distinct challenges. Microsoft Bob became her most difficult one. Bob attempted making computers friendlier through a virtual house interface, but the hardware of that time wasn't ready for it. The program struggled and was discontinued, yet she carried valuable lessons from the experience. Failure didn't diminish her. If anything, it strengthened her and increased her willingness to attempt bold ideas. By the early 1990s, she had become general manager of information products, guiding teams exceeding 100 people and leading innovations that pushed Microsoft's multimedia success to nearly 90% market share. Her leadership helped the company become a global force. Her decisions shaped software used in homes across the world, and her reputation grew quietly but steadily. In 1996, she helped pioneer Expedia, a project that transformed how people booked travel. Real-time flight prices, online reservations, and a user-friendly interface made it one of the fastest-growing digital travel services of the era. By 1998, it generated $250 million in bookings. By 2002, it brought in more than $590 million in revenue and employed over 400 people. The company grew faster than most expected, and her guidance played a central role in that rise. During these same years, she also dealt with the pressure of Microsoft's antitrust battles in the 1990s. The Department of Justice investigated the company for monopolistic practices, and every division felt the weight of scrutiny. Her team focused on product quality and user experience while navigating those challenges, and Microsoft held its position as the leading software company despite constant legal tension. Behind all the professional work, something personal was unfolding quietly. In 1987, she and Bill Gates began dating, but they kept the relationship secret because of workplace rules. They spent 3 years building a partnership that was both personal and intellectual. On January 1, 1994, they married on the island of Lanai in Hawaii, in a small ceremony with only about 20 guests. She entered that marriage with a clear sense of equality. She negotiated a strong prenuptial agreement that ensured she would be an equal partner. The quiet confidence behind that choice revealed the same independence she had carried since childhood. Melinda French entered Microsoft in 1987 as a young product manager who loved solving problems more than being noticed. She started on small projects, then moved quickly into bigger ones like Microsoft Bob, Encarta, and Word. By 1994, she was running a huge group as general manager of information products, leading more than 1,700 people and shaping the consumer side of Microsoft that millions of families used at home. During this same period, she married Bill Gates, who was already famous as Microsoft's chief executive. Yet inside the company, she kept her badge, her office, and her workload. People who worked with her say her promotions were earned in rooms where no one cared about her last name, only if the product shipped and the work got done. She stayed in that pressure cooker through her first pregnancy, still running teams and products while her personal life changed. By 1996, she was 32 and standing at a crossroads. She could keep climbing inside one of the most competitive companies in the world, or she could step away and raise her children. She chose to depart. That decision closed a 9-year chapter in which she had helped shape Microsoft's culture on the consumer side and opened a very different one that would slowly pull her out of corporate life and into philanthropy. Right before she departed, she helped push one last major project forward. In 1996, Melinda played a senior role as Expedia grew from an internal idea into a real business. Richard Barton led the day-to-day team out of Microsoft's Redmond campus, but Melinda was one of the executives guiding strategy, backing the idea that people would someday book their travel online. Microsoft poured money into Expedia, then spun it out in 1999 as a separate public company so it could breathe on its own, recruit talent with stock options, and move faster. Years later, by 2025, Expedia Group would sit at a market value of about $19.39 billion, with $13.7 billion in revenue for 2024 and more than $110.9 billion in gross bookings. The travel site that began as a side project inside Microsoft had become a global giant, and Melinda's early bets helped it outrun rivals like Travelocity. Even as she succeeded, the atmosphere inside Microsoft never felt easy. Melinda later described the culture as loud, sharp, and competitive in a way that often pushed women to the edge. At one point, early in her career there, she almost quit because the meetings felt more like arguments than conversations. Still, her calm style and technical skill kept her moving upward. Over time, she began quietly mentoring women, recruiting talent, and modeling a softer, more collaborative way of leading in a place many employees saw as a classic male-heavy environment. She also saw from the inside how powerful men behaved at work, including Bill's early attention to some female staff members. That tension sat with her for years as she tried to align her values with the world she lived in each day. By the time she departed in 1996, her stock options had turned her into a very wealthy woman. Microsoft's share price had soared, and even before there was a formal foundation, Melinda had the means to live any way she wanted. Instead of only building personal wealth, she began shifting stock into a different kind of future. Over the next years, she and Bill moved billions of dollars in Microsoft shares into what would become the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. By the early 2000s, the couple had already donated around $20 billion to the foundation, turning it into the largest philanthropic organization of its kind. Her own net worth would still stand in the tens of billions, around $17.4 billion by 2025. But now, most of her energy flowed into using that money for something beyond profit, especially through a firm she later created called Pivotal Ventures, which focused on women and families. The philanthropic story didn't start in one big burst. It grew in steps. In 1994, they formed the William H. Gates Foundation, a modest family effort at first, centered on health and education. Then there was the Gates Library Foundation and the Gates Learning Foundation. In August 1999, they merged all of these into a single structure and gave it both of their names. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation launched with an endowment of about $17 billion by the end of 1999, mostly in Microsoft stock. In January 2000, Bill added another $5 billion, lifting the endowment to roughly $22 billion. With that size, the foundation was suddenly large enough to reshape entire systems, not just fund-scattered projects. Even before most people were online, Melinda was already thinking about who would be left out. In the mid-1990s, she and Microsoft backed an effort called Libraries Online. Between 1995 and 1997, they gave around $17 million in software and support to about 200 libraries, putting computers and internet access into public spaces where anyone could walk in and learn. Patty Stonecipher, who later led the foundation, helped run this work. By 2000, more than 10,000 libraries in the United States had received some form of support. For many low-income families, students, and seniors, those machines were their first window into the digital world. That early push helped shape the foundation's belief that access to technology is a kind of basic infrastructure. As the new century opened, the foundation widened its focus. They funded scholarships for minority students and supported education changes in the Pacific Northwest, giving more than $100 million in grants by 1999 alone. One key gift was a $10 million scholarship program at the University of Washington in honor of Bill's mother, Mary Gates. These were small numbers compared to what would come later, but they showed a pattern. Melinda believed in education as a lever, and the foundation invested in new teaching models, training for teachers, and experiments aimed at improving public schools for students who had been left behind. Then Africa changed her perspective fundamentally. On a trip in the late 1990s, Melinda walked through clinics and villages in countries like Zambia and Tanzania and saw what statistics could not fully explain. Families losing children to malaria and other preventable diseases. Mothers walking hours to get basic care. She came back convinced that global health had to sit at the center of their giving. This experience pushed the foundation to fund large vaccination campaigns, maternal health programs, and family planning, especially in the places where child mortality was highest. By 2000, they had already committed hundreds of millions of dollars to these efforts. Over time, those decisions would save millions of lives. Between 2000 and 2015, the foundation grew into a kind of empire. Starting with that $5 billion addition in 1999 and more than $16 billion in 2000, plus later injections of stock, especially from Warren Buffett's $30 billion pledge in 2006, the endowment rose above $50 billion by 2015. The foundation spent about $53.8 billion on global health, education, and development in that period. Melinda co-chaired 5 major divisions and helped steer partnerships with governments and other donors. In the world of philanthropy, the way they operated with metrics, reports, and a business-style approach set new expectations for scale and transparency. One of the clearest examples of their impact came in the fight against polio. Working with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, the foundation helped vaccinate more than 100 million children across Pakistan, India, and other countries between 2000 and 2015. In Pakistan, yearly polio cases fell by more than 90% from 1994 to 2015, including an 80% drop in a single year from 306 cases in 2014 down to 54 in 2015. In India, polio was declared eradicated in 2014. The foundation poured hundreds of millions of dollars into vaccines, surveillance, and ground-level work that got vaccinators into remote areas and conflict zones. For countless families, that meant children who would never face paralysis from a disease that had once seemed impossible to defeat. Melinda also made women's health central to the story. From 2009 to 2015, she backed more than $1 billion in contraception programs across Africa and Asia. In Kenya, contraceptive use among married women climbed from around 46% in 2009 to about 58% by 2015, beating government targets. Through the Urban Reproductive Health Initiative and similar projects, the foundation helped expand access to modern methods in poor city neighborhoods. A shift that researchers estimate led to about 80 million fewer unintended pregnancies and 111,000 fewer maternal deaths across Africa. At the same time, Melinda spoke out in the United States about paid family leave and policies that would make it easier for women to stay in the workforce without sacrificing their health. Her work didn't go unnoticed. In 2016, she and Bill received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Barack Obama, the highest civilian honor in the United States, in recognition of roughly $36 billion in grants that had been made since 2000. Around the same period, France awarded her the Legion of Honor for her contribution to global health and development. Those medals were symbolic, but they confirmed something real. A woman who had once quietly shipped software from a cubicle was now known around the world as one of the most influential figures in modern philanthropy. At the same time, Melinda was building something separate from the foundation. In 2015, she created Pivotal Ventures, a company designed to invest in ideas and organizations that would speed up progress for women and girls. Pivotal backed projects in politics, mental health, caregiving, economic security, and women in technology and media. By 2025, it had put hundreds of millions of dollars into more than 150 organizations, including startups like Papa, which connects college students with older adults who need support, and many efforts to shift the way the economy values the work women do. Her guiding idea was simple. If more women controlled more resources and power, the world would change faster. While her public work grew, her private life was becoming more complicated. In 2017, a woman who worked at a bike shop, partly owned by a firm tied to the Gates family, accused Bill's longtime money manager, Michael Larson, of sexual harassment. Bill initially tried to resolve the matter quietly, but Melinda pushed for an outside investigation by an independent law firm. The woman signed a settlement and a non-disclosure agreement. Yet Melinda was not satisfied. She pressed for a deeper look at the culture of Cascade Investments, the secretive firm that handled Bill's fortune. Larson denied any wrongdoing, but the episode added tension to a marriage already under strain and marked a shift in how Melinda approached problems. Instead of quietly absorbing them, she demanded accountability. Then in 2019, Microsoft's own board began investigating Bill. A female engineer alleged that she had been involved in a long relationship with him that started in 2000 while he was still chairman. The board hired outside lawyers, and Microsoft later confirmed that Bill had sought a relationship with the employee. While Bill said he left the board in March 2020 to focus on philanthropy, people close to the situation said the investigation played a major role in that decision. The story emerged during the height of the Me Too movement, and chipped away at the public image of the careful, disciplined engineer. It also deepened the emotional storm inside Melinda's life, where work, marriage, and reputation had always been tightly linked. Another source of pain was Bill's connection with Jeffrey Epstein. In September 2013, Melinda accompanied Bill to Epstein's townhouse in New York. On the same day, they received a public service award at the Pierre Hotel. She later said the visit left her unsettled. She described Epstein as evil personified and regretted ever walking through his door. When she learned that Bill continued to meet with Epstein after that, she became furious and told him clearly that this relationship was a serious problem. Bill would later admit that meeting Epstein was a huge mistake. But by then, his association with a convicted sex offender had already become a major crack in their marriage and a major source of fear and anger for Melinda. While all this was unfolding, she tried to keep focusing on her work. In April 2019, she published her book, The Moment of Lift, which told stories from her travels and made a strong case for lifting up women as the fastest way to lift up families and societies. On the surface, the book read like a confident call for equality. Behind the scenes, she was dealing with panic, nightmares, and a sense that the life she had built around her husband was no longer stable. Writing the book forced her to revisit painful memories of being one of the few women in male-heavy spaces, and to confront how much of herself she had set aside to support Bill and the foundation. Later that same year, during a trip to New Mexico, the pressure finally broke through. Friends say Melinda suffered what felt like a vivid nightmare while awake, a kind of breakdown that showed just how deep the damage had gone. When she returned from New Mexico in late 2019, she began serious divorce talks. She and Bill quietly separated while lawyers and advisors worked behind the scenes. It would not become public until May 2021, but from that point on, she knew the marriage was ending. The public announcement in May 2021 stunned the world. After 27 years of marriage and 3 children, Bill and Melinda Gates declared that their relationship was irretrievably broken. Reports later revealed that she had already consulted divorce attorneys back in October 2019, after more stories about Bill's meetings with Epstein surfaced. The settlement would become one of the largest in history. Melinda is believed to have received assets worth around $76 billion, putting the split among the most expensive divorces ever recorded. In August 2021, the divorce was finalized. Soon after, Melinda pledged $1 billion over 2 years for women's health and empowerment, signaling that she would use her independence and wealth to push even harder for the causes she cared about. In interviews, Melinda began speaking more openly about the emotional cost of her marriage. She talked about Bill's infidelities, including the affair with a Microsoft employee that triggered the board investigation, and how those betrayals fueled panic attacks and nightmares. She described losing her sense of self for more than a decade while standing beside one of the most powerful men in the world and carrying the responsibilities of the foundation. Therapy helped her slowly rebuild her identity and respond to what had happened without betraying her own values. Her honesty resonated with many women who saw their own stories on a smaller scale. In her words, Epstein remained the final straw in many people's minds. Melinda repeated in later interviews that his presence in their lives was a turning point. She had warned Bill early, and when he continued to meet with Epstein, even after the financier's death in 2019, it signaled to her that they did not share the same boundaries or the same judgment. She saw his association with a known abuser as something she could not accept. After the divorce, Bill publicly called the relationship with Epstein a substantial error in judgment, while Melinda focused more on supporting victims and advocating for accountability. In May 2024, another break became official. Melinda stepped down from the Gates Foundation, leaving Bill as sole chair. For more than 20 years, she had helped build and guide the institution that carried both their names. Now she was stepping away from that shared platform to concentrate fully on her own path. She promised to direct at least $1 billion over 2 years into projects focused on women and girls, and said that leaving the foundation would let her align her time and resources more directly with her personal mission. Her departure raised questions about the future of the foundation and also highlighted how few women had ever held that kind of power in global philanthropy. After the divorce, Melinda began to share small glimpses of her new life. She spoke about being in a fulfilling relationship and about feeling more at peace. She invested more through pivotal ventures, backed new initiatives, and kept returning to the same central theme. When women have power, families, communities, and economies all benefit. Her story became less about being the wife of a famous founder and more about a woman who rebuilt herself after a public and private storm. By the mid-2020s, her financial picture remained enormous, with an estimated net worth near $15.2 billion. A large share of that was committed directly or indirectly to solving deep problems that affect women and girls. Through pivotal ventures, she had put hundreds of millions into more than 150 organizations. These ranged from companies in technology and finance to media projects and political efforts aimed at increasing women's representation and changing caregiving policies. Her money was also present in more specific places on the map. In Pakistan, for example, the Gates Foundation helped finance a €55 million concessional loan in December 2023, which included a €20 million principal buy-down from the foundation to support national health institutions and the Pakistan Polio Eradication Initiative. That money strengthened immunization efforts, paid and trained female health workers, and advanced disease tracking systems. It also inspired local programs that used her model of investing in women-centered projects, including fintech services for women who wanted more control over their finances. In 2025, Melinda's voice became even more personal. She released a memoir titled The Next Day in April of that year. In it, she looked back on her college years, her entry into technology, her time at Microsoft, motherhood, the loss of a close friend, and the long unraveling of her marriage. She wrote plainly that the divorce was necessary because honesty and trust had broken down. She described intimacy as impossible when dishonesty sits in the middle of a relationship. She wrote about panic attacks and nightmares and how therapy taught her to respond to betrayal without betraying herself. She also revealed that the separation played out in secret for more than a year before the world knew anything. Around the same time, she went on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and spoke directly to millions of viewers. In that April 2025 interview, she said she had to leave the marriage because there was not enough honesty to sustain real trust. She explained how therapy had helped her keep her integrity and confirmed that she was now in a fulfilling relationship. Watching her speak, people saw a woman who had lived inside one of the most high-profile partnerships in the world, and then stepped away to define herself on her own terms. Today, Melinda continues investing billions through pivotal ventures in efforts that center women's economic power, caregiving infrastructure, and political representation. She has become a voice not just for philanthropy, but for the idea that systems change when women gain control over resources and decisions. Her journey from a rental property business in Dallas to the highest levels of technology and global health shows how independence built early and protected fiercely can carry someone through even the most painful transformations. She rebuilt herself not by erasing the past, but by refusing to let it define her future.